Hey you guys, what's going on there YouTube? This is SEO0320 representing JVS. So I'm back here again for another discussion, as it were. But really this is kind of like going deeper into the Star Wars lore that was Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which I gave a 10 out of 10, but I gave y'all no context as to why I did that. And this is not my spoiler review, because the spoiler review actually is going to be a totally separate video than this. I don't think I've ever quite done this like this, because this movie has been so decisive in the sense of people really liked it, really loved it, or they were kind of like in the middle of like, it was whatever. And I made the point to say that this movie, if you loved A New Hope Episode 4, if you are a Star Wars advocate, if you looked at any of like the shows like Rebels, or if you read the book like Star Wars Catalyst, then you will have this full immersion experience of like this movie will be an extension for you with A New Hope, like in every way possible. And even if you haven't even, watched like Rebels, or if you've never even seen or read Catalyst, you can still get that feeling if you are a real Star Wars head. Okay? I'm gonna leave it there. But what this video is gonna be talking about is the positives and the negatives, the pros and the cons of Rogue One for me. And I'm not talking about for everybody else. And the reason why I'm doing this is so I can be able to really just gush as much as possible with my spoiler review and talk about the things that I really loved about the things that I can't talk about in this video. So I guess I'll start off with going back and forth, pro and con kind of thing. So pros, start off the bat, I would say that the acting. Felicity Jones, let's see, Diego Luna as Cassian. I think that what's his name, Alan Tudyk, that did the voice of actually Sonny in Our Robot. He does an amazing robot with K2SO. K2SO is so all over the place with his conversation. He's just so sarcastic, so shady in and of itself, but he's so funny. And at the same time, when he, when things happen with him, they meant something, if that makes sense. And it's hard to do with the robot. But even with an extension of that, when you think about Felicity Jones's character as Jyn, like her backstory and everything about her and her dad, which is Miles Mikkelsen, he plays of Jyn Erso, her dad, and like her devotion to not only be able to be one with her dad again, but really be able to make a mark from what her dad did. And if you don't know the context of that, her dad, helped create the Death Star, but you don't know why or how. And I think that when they finally, reconnected, it was just like such a bittersweet. But it had to take a levels of acting that I think that Felicity Jones, with her eyes alone, can really just hit you right there. And I think that everybody in the cast. I mean, the thing is was there Riz Ahmed? He did a really good job as the pilot. I think his name was Rook. I think that Donnie Yen as Truett, and what's his name, Wen Jing as Baze. Those two guardians, the guardians of the temple, quote unquote, they were just awesome. Like, I mean, for the fact of Donnie Yen's character being blind and being able to do everything he did, had an amazing connection with the Force, and everything that he said was so specific. It was just kind of unrealistic, some of the things that did happen with him. And then even like his partner, what's his name, was Baze, like him helping him. It was like, I think the con of that is that with Baze and with Chewett, you don't know the backstory with them. You don't know why they became Guardians. I think that one thing that Donnie Yen's character said, that I don't know if he was talking about Baze or he was talking about somebody else. I think he was talking about, honestly, Forrest Whitaker's Saul Gideon, as being one of the main people, advocates of the rebellion, and one of the biggest and best guardians, so as it were. But you don't know, like, you don't actually know anything about Baze or his backstory. You don't know how true if he was always blind or he lost his eyesight. Even with like Forrest Whitaker, his acting was great. But it's like from the moment that, him meeting with Felicity Jones early on in the movie, and then to later on when we see him, like they only talk about what actually happened around with him and how he's been in the war for X amount of years, and like this is kind of like him being war ridden and stuff like that, and he's very over paranoid. I think one of the most amazing and crazy scenes, which is really dark, was him like basically interrogating Riz Ahmed's character Rook, and I was like, "Yo, what's wrong with Forrest Whitaker's character?" But I mean, it was great in terms of how they pitched his character. You know what I'm saying? It's just there's no context there. You don't know where he comes from, and I think that's a really big con with a lot of people that are really specific with these kind of movies. And that's the thing about this movie, what I think is a plus personally, but some people would take it as a con because this is one specific movie. They were able to crunch everything down and give a clear, concrete story without spreading out into three. Now, if it was spread out into three, of course, there'll be a lot more time of character development, backstory, and stuff that we don't really know. And as well as even take Mads Mikkelsen's character, you know what I'm saying? Him and oh my gosh, Ben Mendelsohn as Krennic. Him and Krennic had an interesting arc before. There was a flashback that showed them together, and I was like, okay, I'm left to assume that they just went different places in their life and the mother wasn't having it because I don't know. I'm left to assume, like, how did they get to work together, underneath the power or the ranks of the Empire? Was it that Mads Mikkelsen just understood, like, Darth Vader was a tyrant, everything was bad? I mean, it's very interesting about how they actually designed this movie because normally this could be something that could have been spread out. And the other thing about this, which would be a lot of negative for a lot of people, I thought it was okay, but I think the context that we don't know could have been really just brought out in the opening crawl. The opening crawl for everybody, they were like, dude, why can't you just tell us what happened? At what point, is this from episode 3 to 4 in terms of time? Because that was one of the things I was curious to see is like at an early point was I think maybe 15 or I don't know how many years early, maybe 10 years? I don't remember. But the beginning of the movie, Jyn's character, she was a lot younger. And I think it was like 20 years, wasn't it? But anyway, she was a lot younger and like this happened and I don't want to spoil what happened, but I was sitting there thinking, I was like, okay, how many years did this take place between, when Anakin turned into Darth Vader to, the point that we see him in the movie later on, as well as the older Jyn, Erso. And I was thinking, I was like, that could have been an interesting segue. Like, Anakin's just, doing his thing and he's still, but I mean, that's the thing about in this movie, when you get to see Darth Vader, and I'm not going to spoil anything about this, but I think that every moment that Darth Vader was on screen, it was perfect. James Earl Jones is doing the voice acting. That was a huge pro for me. That was a huge nod for every fan out there. And then him with Krennic and their conversation that this happened at some point, even like thinking about Tarkin. That's all I can really say without spoiling anything, but how they're able to bring, whether you know it or not, the person that acted as Tarkin died in 1994. Okay, so how is he in? That's all I can say. That and a lot of other people. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many Easter eggs I'm gonna talk about in my spoiler review. You have no idea, and I think that it's just. I mean, it's a fan's dream to be able to revisit any of these characters. I think it's just the segments in time, the characters that we're introduced to, the new characters, they don't have a lot of necessary weight because we don't know them. It's like, I think, what was the character? Cassian that Diego Luna plays. I love this character because he's shadier than, Han Solo was. Like, he's basically, in my opinion, he's kind of like an enforcer almost. Like, I mean, it's an in-between assassin and a person that's just a scoundrel. And I think that the way that they utilized him was perfect for the story and for the pitch, especially his connection with Jyn Erso. But there was even a moment where he had said, I've been in this game since I was like 6 or whatever. And you're thinking, okay, what happened in between that time? Like, could y'all give us a flashback or something? And that's where I'm kind of interested to see if where did the reshoots, what did they remove and what did they add? And I'm really curious to see if there's ever going to be an actual cut before. Disney never really kind of just puts out the original cut for any of their stuff. But I'm really curious to see if a lot of the backstory stuff or flashbacks were a part of it, and I don't really know. But for me, as I said, like those are some of the negatives that I can see with people and some of the positives I can see. And I think that even the visual effects were just amazing. But then again, I've heard some people, it's like when they brought people like Tarkin back or Darth Vader, it was like, yeah, the CG wasn't all that good. But then when I think about the Marvel movies, think about a young Robert Downey Jr. and a young Michael Douglas. Heck, I mean, their CG for that is the same. It's the same as that. It's not like what was it in X3 when they brought a young Charles Xavier and what I'm saying, Magneto. This was better than that. So I mean, for me personally, I thought the CG was amazing. I think it was way more expansive. I think this was a war-ridden world. Even in like with the stormtroopers, like they were just kind of like rough, man. I think one of the most beautiful moments that really took me into the realm of this world was when we first see Jyn Erso on, I don't want to say, but she's interacting with some other people that are prisoners, and she's actually, right next to some stormtroopers, and the stormtroopers are just like out of it. And I think that was the perfect gate for, this world. But then the other side of that, it could be a negative for people, not for me, is that this is not for kids. This is a war movie. Like people do die, and it's rough, man. I mean, I think it was weird because I was sitting next to a young kid, second time watching it, and he was all in it. And I was like, I wonder if I was that age, would I have been all in it, or I've been kind of afraid, like some of the things that were happening. I think that's just us being desensitized now at this point, and young people as well. But this is not necessarily a movie for the young fans like The Force Awakens was. Like anybody could watch The Force Awakens and just really love it. But this is war, and I think that could be a really huge negative. And I think that could kind of put off like a lot of people that would have regularly seen it. But I personally, I don't see that as a negative. I think it's just a totally different subgenre. I think that them trying to do this anthology is great, and I don't know if they'll be able to succeed with the Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I think that a Han Solo and with a freaking, oh my gosh, Lando Calrissian and Donald Glover, that's a plus. Like, come on, take my money. You know what I'm saying? And not just that, no matter what, we're going to be getting episode 8. We're still going to get the saga that is the Skywalkers. And it's just, the Darth Vader stuff alone, and everybody keeps talking about the last 10 minutes was the movie was great. That's what made the movie. For me, nah. From the jump, man. I looked at it the second time. I really enjoyed it. Like it was what I thought and hoped it could be, but I felt like they were going to be too tame with it. And I think that the only other negative I could think of, negatives. I don't know if I can think of any. I'm trying, you guys. Like I'm literally reaching. Like I don't. There's a reason why I gave this movie a 10, and there's a reason why I'm still on the fence whether or not I like this movie more than The Force Awakens. I've seen Force Awakens 10, 11 times. It's just for this. This was a love story to every Star Wars fan, and I am a huge Star Wars fan, and I think that now A New Hope is something new for me. Like I sat there and watched it, and I was like, this fits so perfectly. Like this is what I imagined it could be, and I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. These are just some of the negatives and the positives of Rogue One, Star Wars story. Hopefully, y'all that kind of tides y'all over until I do my spoiler review. I don't know if I'm gonna do my spoiler review tonight or if I'm gonna do it tomorrow. But if y'all can just hang on, I promise you it is coming. I know I talked around a lot of stuff. I kind of spoiled a little bit with the kind of the Tarkin thing, but that was kind of assessed based on I think some of the trailers. But there is more. There's a whole lot more on the lines of Easter eggs. If you want to know something really quick, go to I would say Emergency Awesome. He's got a really good video up right now. But hopefully y'all did enjoy some of my ranting on this. And if y'all would like to, I've been talking with some of the other YouTubers. They really want to do this. We're talking about having a live discussion about Rogue One. So let me know in the comment section below. If y'all do, say hashtag Rogue One discussion. We will definitely do that if I see enough of them. And I'll try to bring in as many people as I can, whether it be Farewell, whether it be Jarrell's, whether it be Amon Snow. I'll try to bring as many as I can. And yeah, I've seen this boys like 3 days ago, and it's still fresh on my mind. So anyway, hopefully y'all enjoyed that. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. I'll talk to y'all soon. Remember, hold on for that spoiler review. It's coming. Rogue One, baby, a Star Wars story. 10 out of 10 for me.